Welcome to Out of the Blue, the podcast. When a cancer diagnosis comes out of the blue for you or someone you love, you're not alone. When you wake up with a spinal injury or survive a traumatic accident, you don't have to go it alone. Chances are we have interviewed someone just like you or someone you love. If something from out of the blue grinds your life to a stop, join me and my co-hosts, daughters Jackie and Samantha, and son Vernon, and our inspiring guests as together we find the way forward. I'm Vernon West, and this is Out of the Blue, the podcast. Today's guest is Wendy Liebman, a wonderful comedian and an amazing human being who it is my great honor to interview for today's show. You're in for a good one. Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So you I know you had Billy was the first person to tell me, oh, I got a perfect person, because you had an out of the blue experience that was quite traumatic.
Yes. Before I share it, I'm wondering what instigated, I know this is not my podcast, but I'm wondering what instigated.
Me doing this?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you, it's easy to say that. I even have it written down, but I know I don't have to read it. I basically got leukemia. I mean, I was a very active musician and playing all the time and enjoying my life as a musician. And I just got a cough, and this little cough was just nothing really. Just I had a 99-degree fever, and we were going to go down for a little vacation, my wife and I, and a weekend vacation, because I could never take time off. I'm always working. And she said, go to the doctor. Maybe get some antibiotics, and then we can go down the Cape, and you can take them and you get some R&R, and you come back, you'll feel better. I said, all right, I don't like to go to the doctor. I've been in the hospital twice in my whole life. I don't like them. But anyway, so I went to the doctor, and he says, oh, you have that same summer cold last year. It's nothing to worry about. I'm not even going to prescribe you anything. Just go home, go on your vacation, have a rest. So I go home. He takes blood, and he does a chest X-ray. And I go home, and the next thing you know, in the morning, I'm packing the car, and I see I got all these missed calls from an unknown number. And I go, I never really respond to those, but it was so many. I thought, this person really wants to talk to me. So I called it. It was my doctor's home cell phone, his own personal cell phone. He says, Vernon, you have to get right into the emergency ward for a full blood workup. I said, why? He said, your red blood cells are down. You shouldn't even be talking to me right now. Your red blood cells are so low, and your white blood cells are through the roof, and that doesn't look good. So get right in there. I said, really, doc? Can I just do it on Monday? He said, nope, get right in. Oh, geez. I went in, and then I remember when I got in there and they took my blood and they hooked me up to all the machines and everything. I'm going, oh, geez, what's going on here? And no one would tell me anything. And I was saying, well, can someone please tell me what's going on? And they said, well, just a minute, Mr. West. The doctor will be over to see you in a minute. And then the doctor comes over, and he's like, this kid looks like Doogie Howser. He's got
They all do.
Yeah,
it's like age.
He's like 12 years old. And he says, he folds his arms and he goes, you, Mr. West, are what we call an interesting case. And I said, oh, shit, that's the last thing I want to hear. And the next thing you know, he says, you got leukemia. And they put me up in one of those bubble rooms where everyone that comes near you has to wear masks and gloves and spacesuits. And then before I know it, I have a crowd of doctors around me. And next thing you know, I'm in this terrible place of leukemia world. And I didn't want to go there. And it affected me, terrified me. I was really scared out of my wits. I thought I was going to die. I mean, the chances of surviving were low. I mean, I was very, very fortunate that I came through it. And it was a bit of a miracle, really, that I did get through it. And when I did get through it, I said to myself, self, you're going to have to do something to pay it forward. I just felt like having survived that. Now I got to tell you, one of the things that also inspired me to do Out of the Blue was the fact that in the leukemia world of cancer and leukemia, for example, they have people called a program called the Immerman Angels, and what they are people who've been through that you can talk to, because basically, I when you're in that world of getting diagnosed with cancer of any kind, you really don't know who to talk to because your family doesn't really understand, and they're just as freaked out as you are. It affects them just as much, and Samantha can attest to that. And the world of cancer and dealing with that is very difficult. So
Leukemia is cancer of the blood.
it's cancer of the blood. It's basically your immune system. So what they gave me was a bone marrow transplant, which is insane because
Mm.
it's different than any other transplant. If you get a kidney transplant, they put a new kidney in there. But bone marrow transplant is your whole blood system, and how they do it is grueling, to say the least.
It's painful, right?
Oh my God, yeah. So it was horrible,
And they keep
but
you in the bubble because
because
of
your immune system,
you. Okay, so it's not because somebody
no,
else can catch
you
it.
can't get anybody sick. No, it's not catchy,
Right. Right.
but you are now you have no immune system, and your immune system is gone. And then what they do for the transplant is they replace your immune system. And I had to get a donor. And this is another out of the blue thing that happened to me was all my family was only about a 50% match to give me that transplant. And nobody was a match. And if you don't get 100% match, the transplant will not work. And at the 11th hour, a 27-year-old young man in Poland walked into a hospital and became a donor,
Oh my
and
gosh.
he was 100% match. So I always,
Wow.
yeah, so it's a miracle,
Crazy.
really. And I
Crazy.
look at it like my grandfather, he must have been fooling around in Poland or something. Oh,
We thought maybe my dad was in his touring musician days.
no,
We're
but
like,
I
do you have
didn't.
a long
I
lost
promise
son?
you I
Oh,
didn't.
you mean like had a
Yeah, it
kid
was
in
so
I had a
Poland?
kid
miraculous.
out there that
Yeah.
was not that I know of, but
What kind of music did you play? Or
uh,
do you play?
rock, rock and roll. But it's a bit like it has it's melodic, Beatlish. At the time, we had about good 15 years. We were hot and toured around, but we got so screwed. That's another story. That's for another
Okay,
podcast
that's a different
altogether.
podcast.
But we had a
The
lot of
So
great.
Screwed podcast.
Yeah, that's just so screwed. It's too, you can't even talk about it.
I might have heard you because I used to, when I lived in Boston, I used to go to like all the rock shows
Oh well,
at
we
the
played the Paradise quite a bit.
Paradise. Well, the comedy club was next door.
Yeah, I have my
Um,
I that's where I had my
Stitches.
bachelor party was at the
Oh,
comedy club, and Dennis Leary was one of the comedians. It was so
right.
funny.
Well,
And
Dennis was the first comedian I was hired to open for in Northampton. It was like a 2 or 3 hour drive in the rain. And when we got there, there were like 8 people. But it was my second paid gig. The first paid gig was at the International Pub in Revere, and they
oh
paid
no
me
way!
$25 in singles. I felt like a dancer.
Oh my God,
Oh,
I can so relate because I used to get paid a lot in cash. I remember
Right.
going to the gas station to pay my gas, and the guy looks at me and I'm paying him counting out the cash, and he goes, "Are you working at the Golden Banana?"
Right?
oh my God.
Exactly.
So I know
Well,
that feeling. Yeah.
did you ever get to go on your vacation?
That particular vacation, we were going to go
Yeah,
see.
to the
We
Cape?
didn't,
Oh.
but we gave we had tickets to see Paula Poundstone,
Oh my God.
which I
She's,
love. I love her.
I started in doing stand-up in Boston, and she came back to play it against Sam's to do a gig. And I remember watching her thinking, why am I even trying to do this? She's it.
She's amazing.
So,
Yeah.
so then cut to like 35 years later, I was on a show that she was hosting recently. Actually, it was for like um, writers with substance problems.
Wow.
And Leonard Bouchel hired me to perform. And she was hosting. I guess she performed the year before and they loved her so much. She came back and she hosted, and they were honoring Ed Begley Jr. And she didn't know me, and she sat in the front row because she was hosting, and she laughed during my entire set. And it was so full circle. It was
That's cool. That's cool.
thrilling because
Yeah, that's
I think she's the best.
yeah,
She's
that's
the
wonderful.
best in terms of talking to the audience, which I think the audience loves because then they see that you're not just reciting jokes that
Mhm.
anybody could have written. It's like
Mhm.
you're the funny person on stage, and you're the funny person,
Yeah.
and they're seeing it in real time. They know
Yeah, I
that
love that.
it's
That's a great way to look
authentic.
at it. I love that. Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's
Yeah,
what I liked about Paula is that she does have that break the third wall kind of thing. You know, you feel like
yes,
she's talking right to you. Or the fourth wall. I forget which
Yeah.
absolutely.
wall it
The
is.
fourth
Oh,
wall.
the fourth wall. It's one of the walls.
Yeah, my nicest compliment ever. I was performing in Lake Tahoe, and this really old woman after the show said to me, I felt like you were just talking to me.
That's kind
And
you know,
that
I've
was my
had,
It,
favorite compliment.
you
oh
know, in
yeah.
music, I've had that experience too. I mean, I wrote a song about my father who passed away when I was 17. And it was called Only the Good Times Last Forever. And it was about a dream I had with my dad that he had been dead for 5 years, and I was recently married, and I was having one of those times when I couldn't sleep, and I'm sitting out in the den while my wife's soundly sleeping, and in my dream I fell asleep on the couch, and in my dream I saw my father cooking breakfast in the kitchen, and I said, "Dad, what are you doing? What are you doing?" He doesn't say anything. He looks at me, and then he shakes his head, and I said, "Dad, you can't. What are you doing?" He's making breakfast, and I'm thinking, well, that's something he used to do all the time when we were kids, and I think that's one of the nice memories I have with him. And now all of a sudden, I'm watching the television, and it's the Gary Shandling show, one of my most beloved shows. I love Gary Shandling. He's a favorite of mine. Who isn't? Who doesn't love
Right.
Gary? And
Exactly.
and on the show, Gary starts singing. He doesn't sing. You know what I mean? He starts singing a
Wait, is
song.
this the dream or this
This
was
is the dream.
reality?
This is the dream.
Okay.
In the dream, Gary starts singing, and he sings this song, "Only the Good Times Last Forever." And I'm writing. I said, and then I look at my father and I think, holy, this is a message of something he's trying to give me by cooking the breakfast. And then I'm hearing Gary Shandling, and then I wake up and I'm crying in my dream, and I wake up and my face is totally soaked. My hands are out in front of me like I'm hugging him. And then I said, I got to write this down. And I wrote it down, and that's how the song came out. Well, anyway, this song I used to play it a lot, obviously, after I wrote it. And I was playing it for this audience once, and this kid came up to me after the show. This happened more than once, actually, a couple of occasions. Um, and he said to me, "My brother just passed away, and that song, it felt like you wrote it just for me." So it really
Oh.
made me feel so good, like complete the circle. You know,
Was it Gary Shandling who came up to you?
no, I wish it
Oh.
was. I never met. It was some guy in New Hampshire.
I was on the Gary Shandling show. It's or the Larry Sanders show
I saw it.
for 8 seconds once.
Oh, really? Were you in the
Yes.
writers? Where were you? Where
No,
were?
I was on TV. I was on a TV that his sidekick was watching. His sidekick took the day off and was having an affair in a hotel room, cheating on his wife. And I was telling jokes on the show about your husband, my husband. And so he was feeling guilty for cheating on his wife. So
Oh,
Oh,
that was
I'm gonna have to look for it. I'll have to look for it because I any excuse to watch Gary again was just valid to me. But anyway,
whoa.
yeah. So tell us now. We've had fun, a
just
lot of
chatting
fun.
about
Yeah,
everything.
and all this stuff really, if you think about it, I mean, when I think about even writing a song, I mean, when I write a song, it comes from out of the blue. I don't know where it comes from. I mean,
Right.
I used to say, when I get an idea, it comes out through the mist, and it's like I don't. It gets more and more solid the more I grab it and bring it into reality. And I think it must be the
Right.
same way with writing comedy or any kind of writing, but writing jokes the same way, wouldn't it be?
It absolutely is, Vernon. I dreamt a tagline to one of my jokes once.
Whoa.
What?
A tagline, like
Oh,
an
okay.
extra punchline. The joke was I um was in a car accident. I hit a house on a truck. It was coming at me, and I dreamt, are these people too lazy to pack? Because it was a house.
Oh,
So I
right. I heard
dreamt,
that.
are these people too lazy to pack?
I heard that.
And
Yeah.
um, I was flashing my brights, beeping my horn. Nobody was home. Anyway, so the joke, I added to the joke by dreaming it. But it's interesting you say that because my husband is a musician, songwriter as well,
Oh,
and
wow.
he comes from a family of songwriters. His father and uncle are the Sherman brothers who wrote a lot of the music for Disney in the 60s.
Wow. That's
They
cool.
wrote Mary Poppins and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and they wrote the song It's a Small World, and they wrote Jungle
Cool.
Book. And so my husband did a documentary about them called The Boys, the Sherman Brothers story, because you know all their music, but you don't know them, and they're brothers and they never got along, but they wrote all this music.
Wow.
And I think it was Stephen Schwartz, the composer, who said, and I might be wrong, but I'm attributing it to him. He said, when you write a music, it's like you're putting your hands under the water of a faucet and you're shaping it. Like the music's always there, but
Yeah.
you have to gather it and shape it. Um,
Hmm.
and my husband writes music and he's like, I don't know where this came from. I couldn't recreate this. Like I wasn't thinking about it. It just
Right.
happened.
It's like,
And I know I wrote a joke or a couple of years ago. That's recent for me. But the joke is I had a little black dress with spaghetti straps and then a larger black dress with lasagna straps. And I don't remember thinking that joke. It's like the joke thought me.
right?
Whoa.
You
Oh,
know what
wow.
I mean?
I love it. Yeah.
So, but
Cool.
yeah, you want to hear my out of the blue?
Yes. I think just about everything our lives are pretty much out of the blue. Let's face it. I mean, think about how many millions of sperm were swimming for that egg. We have
Mhm.
Wendy's sperm made it, Samantha's sperm, Vernon's sperm made it, but what about the 999 million others that didn't make it?
Exactly. And
So,
I'm not a good swimmer, so I don't know how I made it. I guess the other ones were wearing, I don't know.
yeah,
Mine was
right.
wearing a life vest or something. I
Yeah,
don't
something happened,
know.
but it worked out. That's all. But I mean, everything is, I mean, especially when I speak to other people, a lot of people I speak to are artists. So out of the blue experiences sometimes are a little bit more stranger to them. But I still think that people should think about it because I think that is something that does connect us all. And I think that's so you're going to share with us your recently, well, not that recent, but at least 4 or 5 years ago.
It was 2017,
Okay.
2018.
Well, 6 years ago
That's
then.
recent. That's
Yeah,
recent.
that's
Yeah,
pretty recent.
it feels recent.
I
Mhm.
bet.
Yes.
Um, because I'm still reminded of it. And I want to preface all of this by saying I don't believe in what if, like what if I had taken a different route or was 5 minutes later. I don't believe in that. I believe in what is. It was out of the blue, but it was meant to happen.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
Mm.
it was
I
an inevitability that
Yeah,
this happened to me.
Wow.
that's
Um,
that's a
s-
wonderful interpretation of the out of the blue experience, actually.
yeah.
That's really remarkable. You hit a point there that I completely agree with you. But go ahead, tell us it's about your experience. Let's hear it.
So I was going to lunch with a friend that I hadn't seen. And he told me where to meet him. And I parked my car. And as I was waiting to cross the street, I saw that next to the restaurant was a clock repair place where they could repair your watch or your clock. And in the trunk of my car, I had had a clock that I had been driving around with, thinking I should get this repaired,
Clock
but
repair.
it just happened to be there. So I started going back to my car to get the clock. And then I realized I'm not going to have enough time. Ironically, I thought, I thought, you know what? I better just go back to the restaurant, like cross the street now. I'm going to be late. I'll get the clock after
I'll
lunch.
have time for the time later.
And I took 2 steps off of the curb and I was hit by a car. And I felt myself pinned to the car, and my body was turning as the car was moving. And I remember thinking, oh, this is what it's like to be hit by a car.
Whoa.
And I also remember thinking, can I swear?
Yeah, we could just
I don't have to. I don't have
we
to.
could bleep it,
You
but
can totally
you could
swear.
No, it's okay. I was thinking, oh, I don't have time for this. That's what I was
time,
thinking.
the
I don't
time
have
comes into it
time
again.
for this.
Yeah.
Right. Because I
Oh,
had a lot going on. I mean, a lot of things that I needed to do, gigs to go to and
yeah.
whatever.
I don't have
And
time for this. So.
I was scared. This was in November, and I was scheduled to go to Hawaii, actually to open for Bill Maher, for New Year's in
Big
Hawaii.
show. Big show.
Yeah. So I remember turning, and then I think even the tires ran over my feet. Anyway, I'm lying there. I look up, I see a guy who was coming towards me, crossing the street at the same time. And I remember saying to him, we had the light, right? And he's like, yes, we had the light. Because I thought, oh my God, maybe I just crossed
Yeah.
uh, against the light. And it took me like months to realize that where the car was coming from. I had no idea if the car had made a left turn or a right turn. It had made a right turn right into me. And anyway, I had one broken leg and both my feet were broken. And my life pretty much changed on that day
I bet.
for a long time. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to hear all the
I
details, except that,
I do. No, I do. I
okay,
think that
so
those are important.
they put a rod in my leg. But when they put the rod in my leg, it wasn't a leg doctor that did it. It was a shoulder doctor.
Oh my goodness.
And I mean, he still could have done a good job, but he was on call.
Right,
That's
right.
okay.
Mm.
So I don't know how to explain this except to say that if these are my feet, my knees were right, but this foot was like this because they rotated the rod
Oh
18 degrees.
boy.
So, but nobody knew that until the cast was off. But I was in
Oh,
so much pain
Oh my goodness.
because my leg was not in the right position.
right.
And all the doctors were like, you should be walking by now. And I'm asking for more pain medication. And I totally get the opioid addiction problem because it was uh, addictive. And I took a lot of it, and I had to really be careful
Yeah, it's not easy.
about that. Yeah, I could totally understand it, getting addicted to that.
Yeah.
So, anyway, long story short, they had to wait until my leg set, and then they had to re break that bone and
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
recalibrate the rod. And so then it took twice as long for me to heal. So I
Yeah.
was in bed for 14 months.
Oh boy.
And so my life changed that day. Now,
Yeah.
what I'd have to tell you is it wasn't all bad because I felt so loved.
Mm.
I heard from people out of every facet of my life. And I just, I felt protected by people.
It's wonderful. It's so wonderful.
And also my husband treated me like the princess I was born to be.
Yeah, but the queen, the queen, as Samantha would say, the queen.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
you are the queen. But I completely commiserate, identify with that because same thing. I spent 9 months in the hospital, and I couldn't walk, and I was stuck in bed, and it took me a while to get out of the bed because I had to get a lot of the things that happen with leukemia are uh, not leukemia. I mean, they're sort of like the side effects.
Right. Well, if your immune system is
Yeah.
compromised.
And one of the things that happens is that I got a brain tumor or something like that, for lack of a better term, and that
Oh,
took away my right motor functions. So for a while, I had no right arm and no right hand. And as a bass player and as a writer and as an artist, I need my right hand. I was completely freaked out about that. And they went through a long time of therapy to get the right hand back, which I do have the right hand back. The right leg is coming back. But I know what you're saying though, because that's what changed me. That's why I said I wanted to pay it forward, because what I remember from all the experiences of you might say the arduously terrible experience of being in the hospital, of having this thing to deal with, as I do remember nothing more than all the love. I mean, I'm talking the everyone, the guy that came to clean my room, the people that came in to change the bed sheets. There was so much love. Of course, my family, of course, my friends. I heard from so many people I hadn't heard from in decades. Matter of fact, they showed up in my room. Some people that I hadn't seen in over 30 years, they showed up. People that were my roadies when I got the big screw job, and they showed up. And that was pretty
right.
amazing too. But
Right. And I said I healed at the speed of love.
oh, I
Oh,
love that. Healing at
yeah.
the speed of love.
And I needed a break. Like I should have been more specific, not my leg,
Yeah,
but
right.
I had been traveling for years and years, and it was like I was exhausted.
Yeah.
So 14 months in bed. I wasn't in the hospital. I just wanted to clarify that. I was at home,
Well,
but it
no,
was a
no
long
different.
time.
You know,
Yeah,
no, you don't have the independence. It's
right.
the
I
same
couldn't
ball of
do things for myself.
it's the same ball of crap. You know what I mean? You have to deal
Full
with
of crap.
you have to deal with not being able to get up and get that. You
I
know,
know.
you know what I
I
mean?
had to pee in a jar. My
Oh
poor
yeah.
husband. I owe my husband big time.
I have the same feelings about my wife because I've had to pee in many a jar.
So
But
yeah, it's all
definitely,
about the pee jar, Vernon.
yeah.
Um,
But only the good times last forever. Isn't that really what it comes down to? That's what I feel like I learned about. It, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy for me because I felt like that the only things I remember about all this stuff I went through, there was a lot of horrible stuff. I mean, there was times when it was so dark, I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to live. But when I look back now, all I remember is the love. That's the
it's
only
really
thing that,
true.
it's the
I
only thing that
also
remains.
remember the settlements I got.
Yeah.
That's good. I didn't
Right.
get it. But look,
You
good
didn't
for
get a
you.
settlement. I
No
know.
settlement for leukemia.
So
Although,
it was right before COVID that this happened. I
oh, right.
performed two shows. I was better and ambulatory. I did two shows and then came lockdown. So there were times during COVID when I had collected some insurance that I thought, oh my God, thank God I got hit by a car because I don't know
Right.
how
That's
I
cool.
was gonna be able to afford that.
Yeah, you're right.
So
Because when you're a working artist, musician, or comedian,
yeah,
you got to work.
yeah,
You know.
that's our livelihood. I
Yeah.
did do Zoom shows. They had
Really?
shows on Zoom.
Oh,
Yes,
oh,
it
that's
was
super.
it was a whole new experience, and I likened it to when I first started going on the road doing stand up. I would have to do radio in the morning to publicize my shows, and I didn't know anything about being on the radio. So it's just another skill I had to learn to Zoom my comedy shows. There were
Right.
times where I would be performing and then I would hear, when is Bobby coming on? Like people would be sitting in their squares. There was one time there was somebody in their square, and all of a sudden it went cloudy, like he was smoking a bong.
Probably
Then
his.
one time the dog was just sitting there, like there was no person in the square.
That's like Hollywood Squares,
Yeah,
the Hollywood Squares for
exactly.
Zoom. But yeah, I think I've experienced a semblance of that. But so you'd
Yeah.
say that this definitely affected your life in a way that it changed a major change in your. How about affecting you now? Has your outlook changed toward life? Do you appreciate more?
I want to say that I do. I think that I do. Like there are times when I get out of bed and I think, I couldn't do this for 14 months. So I should be really happy that I can
Yeah,
get to the washing machine,
right.
like that I could do laundry.
You can do laundry.
Um,
Wow, that's impressive.
but here's the other thing that I wanted to share, and that is like my life, I have so many weird coincidences in my life, like
Mm.
really weird coincidences. And I think maybe maybe everything in life is kind of perfect, and the coincidences are there just to remind you
Oh,
that everything is meant to be, or um I mean, I'm not saying you should step back from your life and let it happen to you,
No, right.
but there is some grander design of inevitability.
Hmm. So that's really an interesting point about anything that happens to us, whether it's this big giant out of the blue experience or these little serendipitous coincidences that happen. It seems like there's something at work higher in a higher level than us. I don't know, maybe it's,
Exactly.
you know, I don't know.
Exactly.
I'm not
Like
sure.
one time when I first started doing stand up and I lived in Boston, um, I was dreaming about who I would want to be my manager. And I thought, oh, I like the guy who manages Stephen Wright because I loved Stephen Wright, the comedian.
Yes,
And
yes.
this was in the 80s, and this is before the internet. So it took me like a little while to figure out who that was. And his name was Tim Sarkis. So I was going to call him. I had a day job. So when I got home, I was going to call him. Well, I get home and I hear my answering machine, and there was one message on it, and it was from Tim Sarkis. And he had heard about me.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God,
That's
that's
beautiful.
crazy.
Yeah.
whoa.
So,
It's what a small world, 6 degrees of separation. I mean, my cousin went to school with Stephen Wright,
oh,
and he told me stories about him, how he was the least funny person that they hung around with. He was just quietly observing everything.
right.
And who
He's
knew he was
so
filling all these
funny.
notebooks with all this stuff? And then he started coming out with it, and he went, obviously the equivalent of viral in those days, you know.
Right.
Um, but he's an amazing comedian. I always love Stephen, and I love your work. Kind of reminds me a little bit almost of your observational humor.
That's a very high compliment. Thank
Yeah, I
you.
think you do have a good sharp view that see through your jokes, and it's to me, comedians are really like high art. You know, to me, it's like you're bringing to a life things. You're forming a concept out of a situation that we've all experienced, but we don't know how to say quite what it is about that experience. And then a good comedian will point out what it is, the irony of it, or the satirize it or something. And I think it's really a function that is so important to us all in society, you know, to have that.
Well,
So
it's a way of helping people think there could be a different way to think about things.
there
So
you go.
I try to think of it as hopeful. Like it's hopeful that you don't have to be stuck. I mean, I started doing comedy, I was very depressed. And I think it was my way. Like I liked making people laugh instead of crying by myself. It
Yeah.
was, it, it gave me hope. And
Yeah.
the older I got, the more I realized none of it's about me. Like it's about the audience.
But it's
So,
so good. It's so good to hear that. I really feel that that's what the goal of this show is to make people uh, see these things. And I mean, I feel like we're on track for uh, so on track with the message that I want to put out there with Out of the Blue, and that's to get people to know that we're all really we're all really connected through these things. And I think a quote of Einstein was that the delusion of separation. It's we're not really separate. You know, we're really kind of like you thought of that manager, and there he
yeah.
is on your phone. I mean, that's
Oh, here's another coincidence. So, when I was in college during the summer, I used to work in Montauk, New York. I was a maid in a hotel. And for 2 summers, there was a woman named Stephanie Trotta, and we decided to go back the second summer and work together and live in a house together. And so she became my summer friend. And then we lost touch. And then I took a job as an intern at a magazine in New York City. And I walk in, and who is the receptionist on the 23rd floor of this office building in Manhattan? It was Stephanie Trotta. And I'm like, what?
that's crazy.
Like, weird.
Yeah,
Eh,
life is that's a beautiful thing, though. I think the here, you know what I think. Hearing all this confirms what I think actually. That the more you get in touch with the things that are happening out of the blue and you vibe with them and you realize they're inevitables, that there's something about a higher purpose at work, the more you're able to be guided by it, almost like signposts. They lead you into a place where you were up that floor, all those choices that made to get you there. I mean,
Right. Can I tell one more
oh,
coincidence?
Please.
please tell many more. Yeah,
Okay.
good.
So when I first met my husband, we were, I was bringing him on the road with me. And the day before we went on the road, he wanted to buy me a ring. And as he was paying for it, the woman pointed to a book and said, "This book just came in. Do you want to buy this?" And it was called The Pop-Up Book of Phobias. And you would open it up, and it was like a pop-up book for adults, and it would be like a dentist drill or a tall building or a spider. And we're like, $25. No, that's cute, but whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So we fly to Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey, and I'm talking with the other comedian, and I said, how long have you been doing comedy? And he said 8 years, but I also just wrote a book called The Pop-Up Book of Phobias.
Wow.
And
Wow.
my husband and I were like, what?
Yeah, your jaws hit the floor. That's what happens.
And he gave us a copy.
Well,
Well, you didn't have to buy it after all. Yeah.
Oh,
Saved the
and by the
place.
way, I did eventually go to Hawaii with Bill Maher when my leg was better in 4 years later.
How was that? Was it a
So,
great show?
oh, it was so much fun. Jeffrey Ross was the other comedian.
Oh, I know Jeffrey. Yeah.
And one night it was uh Woody Harrelson was there and Peter Farrelly.
He lives there, Woody, doesn't he? He
Yes.
lives out in Hawaii. Yeah.
And
That
then one night it was Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder, and Sean Penn. It was surreal. It was surreal.
that does sound surreal. It does. And
Yeah. And
that
Bill was just so nice, and all of his friends were just, it was awesome. It was a
yeah,
trip of a lifetime.
I bet. And you got a vacation too on top of it.
Vacation. I ate the 4 best meals I ever ate.
How long were you there?
It was 4 nights. 4 nights. Yeah, 4 nights.
4 nights of the gig.
There were only 2 gigs.
2 gigs. So you had 2
So
nights.
the first 2 nights it was just vacation.
Oh, there you go.
So
That's the
yeah,
best part.
it
One
was
of the best parts of
lovely.
being a musician to me was always getting the chance to see the world and get paid to do it. But
Right. And plus when you're on the road, you don't have to do laundry.
that's true. You get someone else throw it in the thing and they'll take care of it. When I had gone to Switzerland, I also went to Italy and I got to experience a lot of wonderful things in the world. And I was getting paid to do it. It was amazing that I could go there and see the world and have a wonderful vacation. And all I had to do was get on stage and play a little bit. And to me,
Right.
that's the fun part.
Right.
People used to ask me when I played clubs or venues, whatever. They say, "You get paid to do that, huh?" And I said, "No, I don't get paid to do that. I do that for free. I get paid to sit here between the sets and hang."
Right.
To be
Well, Mickey Dolenz lives near us and we've befriended him. He's a friend of my husband's, and he said he gets paid to fly, like to travel. That's what
right.
the money is for. But when he's on stage, it's like fun.
That's the fun part. Yeah, we do
Oh,
that for free.
yeah.
The hard part is the travel.
I felt like I was name dropping just then.
No,
I'm
no, no.
sorry.
I'm glad
Okay.
to hear it. It's nice to know that your husband knows Mickey Dolenz.
He's the nicest guy. He and his wife are just lovely people. Yeah.
I was a fan of the Monkees as a kid. I
Oh, I know, but I was in love with Davy. And so I finally got to meet Davy at Mickey's wedding. And you know what? He didn't do it for me anymore.
really.
Are
Oh,
you
I'm
too
so.
young to know who
I
that
know the
is?
monkeys.
Oh my
Samantha
God.
knows them because
I do,
she's
believe
my
me.
daughter, so she's heavily inundated with
Are
musical.
you in the band? Are you a
Well,
Oh,
musician?
she's in some of the videos
there's a
we've done.
few. I'm in one of them.
She
My dad
was
has a few bands, but yeah, I'm in
she's
one.
one of the bands we did we did a little while called the VW Bus Band, and
Ooh,
yeah, it was
The
good.
one I'm in is called Your Mother's Onion. So it's a little older.
okay.
But
Your mother's onion.
she's there wearing a raspberry beret, hitting the tambourine and singing backup. It's pretty good. She was actually pretty
Awesome.
good. And
Yeah, the one that I do with my brother and sister and my dad is a little bit more jam band style. It's nice.
yeah, we
I
do
like
that
to pluck
too.
around on electric.
The family band,
The
Yeah,
family
we have
band.
like
so
the
many.
Partridge Family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I come from also a family of musicians. My uncles were jazz. My uncle was a jazz
Oh,
musicians, and my father was a singer and an
I
artist.
do think it's genetic
It is. It is.
because both of my stepsons are crazy good musicians.
There you go.
And yeah,
It's definitely
so
genetic. It's something in the blood. But I had that same upbringing of music all the time, and it definitely affected me and in a good way. I think I learned that at an early age that matter of fact, the reason I became a musician, I mean, my uncles were already, I was like 5 years old and I was watching television. And I think Louis Armstrong came on the Ed Sullivan show. He started playing When the Saints Go Marching In. And I'm sitting there watching him and kneeling on the front of the TV, the black and white screen. And in comes all my uncles. They were in the other room and there was a funny smell. I don't know what it was, but I think might have been cannabis. I don't know. But they came in the room and they were like, "Oh man, it's the doctor." And they called Louis Armstrong the doctor. And I went to my mother that night. I said, "Mom, I want to be a doctor." And she said, "Oh, great, we can have a doctor in the family." Little did she know I did not mean the kind that really makes,
That's
and
hysterical.
yeah, so that's what I one of the reasons I took up trumpet when I was 7, and then by the time I learned that that was the different kind of doctor that I still
That's
wanted to be a doctor.
hysterical. Well, I remember I was watching Merv Griffin or Mike Douglas, and Phyllis Diller was on. I was like 11, and I heard her say, "You have to make them laugh, and then just when they think they're done laughing, you have to hit them again." And I'm like 11 going, "I know what you mean."
Yeah,
And
well,
so I feel like that was the first time I was like turned on to
that is pretty
joke
cool.
writing.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say so.
And
Yeah,
then I watched Laugh-In and fell in love with
yeah.
Lily Tomlin.
My
So,
at a young age, I used to. I mean, I had one hit like in 1979, and this hit was predicated my big giant screw job. But I always learned at a young age, being that I loved Louis Armstrong and I got into music for that sort of because he made me feel good. I felt like he was like a doctor, and I felt like music was something I could do to help people feel better. But also because I can relate what you said about being depressed, because I think that my life, my father had a tough time with alcohol, and he we had a kind of a tough childhood, and I was depressed, and music was my way of making other people happy, but it made me happy. And I really related to what you said. That's so true because that's how I got happy, by using music to help others to feel happy. And it made me feel good. I was doing something with my life of value. But I used to have a fantasy about writing a hit song. And a hit song I always thought meant it hit you in the heart.
oh,
I didn't know the business term, because the business term means it's the top 40, it's number 10 with a bullet, or whatever the things they say in the musical world. But I thought it meant it hit you in the heart. And I always was endeavoring to write music like that, to hit
Wow.
people. Yeah. So I'll share one beautiful experience I have of that. Is I put out an EP like in 1987, and on this was a song called "Carry Me Back." There's a bunch of songs on it, but this one particular song. And I remember coming out of a show, and this 14-year-old kid was waiting there because he couldn't get in. It was 21-year-old only. And he says, "Could you sign this EP?" And he had my EP, and I signed it for him. I says, "Well, thank you how'd you hear this? Tell me about it." He said, "Oh, me and my grandfather loved the song Carry Me Back, and we always listened to it." I said, "Oh, that's wonderful." He says, "Where's your grandfather? Do I know him?" He says, "Oh, I just came from his funeral." And we played the song Carry Me Back at his funeral. And I was like, I don't know if I could do any
oh,
more. I felt like I'm done. That's it.
Wow.
I'm going
oh
home
my
now.
God.
I'm going home. I give up. I'm never going to top that, you
That's
know.
incredible.
But that's the kind of experience I think music, and I think comedy is the same thing. It's like you're taking experiences and using them to uplift people, to
And
get them,
connect them.
connect them. That's a really important
Yeah.
aspect of it. I think ultimately that's what Out of the Blue is trying to do. We're trying to connect people through these incidences of people's lives. I think it's going to be really helpful for people to hear that Wendy Liebman, who's people in the world look at somebody who's doing something that they love, successful at it, and they think, oh, they got it made, oh, their life is so perfect. But it's really helpful for them to hear that it isn't always perfect, and there's things you have to deal with. But what it is that how our outlook is changed by them and affected by them, and a lot of it has to do with your outlook before it happens. I mean, to me, for my personal out of the blue experience with leukemia was that I feel like I had gotten a little complacent. I had not been growing enough, and when I got leukemia, I almost felt like, okay, this is time to grow. And
Interesting.
you
So it's
know,
like it cut you off somewhere in your life and then let new things grow, like a plant that you cut back.
Yeah, almost like that. And I related to what you said when you said earlier that you, I needed a break.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
always working all the time, and I wasn't
Right.
stopping to think about what's really important in my life or what would make me
Right.
more, really, what is my purpose? And I think I found that the best purpose I have when you distill it out of, music and say writing, it is to connect people, really. Isn't that it? And if you look at what
Yes.
the crap going on in the world right now, I like and someone told me an analogy once about a jar of ants, red ants and black ants. You put them in a jar together, they get along fine. When someone comes along and shakes the jar, they all start killing each other.
Oh,
So I think about it, like, isn't that what's going on? A lot of times I think about that. I think there's people shaking the jar. So people are getting all mad at each other for no reason that I can think of. And I think that there is, we start zeroing in on people's differences. I think we got to start zeroing in on people's similarities and the things that connect us. And if that's what we can do with sharing these experiences, it's worth it.
well, it's lovely. I loved being on your podcast.
Oh, so I'm so grateful you came, Wendy. You made my day.
Oh.
Really
And another
grateful.
time I want to hear about what happened to you, music
Oh,
wise.
for sure. I hope you don't mind that. I'd like to keep in touch for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and especially because I get a lot out of sharing it. I get a lot of
Well,
I
it helps.
it does. It
Yeah.
helps. It helps to talk about
Yeah.
it. Because I mean, I have my wife tells me, you got to let that stuff go. Well, I do have let it go. I mean,
Right.
the people that I actually look back now and I think, they did me a favor because they
That's what I
saved.
was going to say. What good came out of
Yeah, I mean,
that?
ultimately, that's the truth. More good came out of it than bad. And I
Like
think,
some fourth grade class asked me for advice. And what I said was, if a door closes, then it's not a sense of rejection, it's a sense of direction. So if that door closed, go to a different door.
Out of the Blue, the podcast, hosted by me, Vernon West, co-hosted by Samantha West, edited by Joe Gallo, music and logo by Vernon West III. Have an Out of the Blue story of your own you'd like to share? Reach us at info@outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. Subscribe to Out of the Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and on our website, outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. You can also check us out on Patreon for exclusive content.